Hi everyone, I'm Mr. Thomas with Pensacola State College Library and Kids College. Today we're going to be reading The Sneetches by Dr. Seuss. Then I'm going to show you how to make a homemade squishy ball. Before we get started, now's a good time for a parent or guardian to grab a couple things so we can do our craft. You'll need a couple balloons, some flour, a pair of scissors, a funnel, and then you're going to need some type of container with a wide lip and a wide mouth. That's going to make it a lot easier to fill your balloons and do your craft. And now, let's read our book. The Sneetches by Dr. Seuss. Now the star-belly Sneetches had bellies with stars. The plain-belly Sneetches had none upon theirs. Those stars weren't so big, they were really so small, you might think such a thing wouldn't matter at all. But because they had stars, all the star-belly Sneetches would brag, "We're the best kind of Sneetch on the beaches. With their snoots in the air, they'd sniff and they'd snort. We'll have nothing to do with the plain-belly sort." And whenever they met some when they were out walking, they'd hike right on past them without even talking. When the star-belly children went out to play ball, could a plain belly get in the game? Not at all. You could only play if your bellies had stars, and the plain-belly children had none upon theirs. When the star-belly Sneetches had frankfurter roast, or picnics, or parties, or marshmallow toast, they'd never invite the plain-belly Sneetches. They left them out cold in the dark of the beaches. They kept them away, never let them come near, and that's how they treated them, year after year. Then one day, it seems, while the plain-belly Sneetches were moping and doping alone on the beaches, just sitting there wishing their bellies had stars, a stranger zipped up in the strangest of cars. "My friends," he announced in a voice clear and keen, "my name is Sylvester McMonkey McBean, and I've heard of your troubles. I've heard you're unhappy. But I can fix that. I'm the fix-it-up chappie. I've come here to help you. I have what you need. My prices are low, and I work with great speed, and my work is 100% guaranteed." Then quickly Sylvester McMonkey McBean put together a very peculiar machine, and he said, "You want stars like the star-belly Sneetch? My friends, you can have them for $3 each. Just pay me your money and hop right aboard." So they clambered inside, and the big machine roared, and it conked, and it bonked, and it jerked, and it burked, and it bopped them about. But the thing really worked. When the plain-belly Sneetches popped out, they had stars. They actually did. They had stars upon theirs. Then they yelled to the ones who had stars at the start, "We're exactly like you. You can't tell us apart. We're all just the same now, you snooty old smarties. Now we can go to your frankfurter parties." "Good grief," groaned the ones who had stars at the first. "We're still the best Sneetches, and they are the worst. But now, how in the world will we know," they all frowned, "if which kind is what, or the other way around?" Then up came McBean with a very sly wink, and he said, "Things are not quite as bad as you think. So you don't know who's who. That is perfectly true, but come with me, my friends. Do you know what I'll do? I'll make you again the best Sneetches on the beaches, and all it'll cost you is $10 eaches." "Belly stars are no longer in style," said McBean. "What you need is a trip through my star-off machine. This wondrous contraption will take off your stars, so you won't look like Sneetches who had them on theirs." And that handy machine worked very precisely, removed all the stars from their tummies quite nicely. Then with snoots in the air, they paraded about, and they opened their beaks and let out a shout, "We know who's who." Now there isn't a doubt. The best kind of Sneetches are Sneetches without. Then, of course, those with stars got frightfully mad. To be wearing a star was now frightfully bad. Then, of course, old Sylvester McMonkey McBean invited them to his star-off machine. Then, of course, from then on, as you'd probably guess, things really got into a horrible mess. All the rest of that day on those wild screaming beaches, the fix-it-up chappie kept fixing up Sneetches, Off again, on again, in again, out again. Through the machines, they raced round and about again, changing their stars every minute or two. They kept paying money, they kept running through, until neither the plane nor the star bellies knew whether this one was that one, or that one was this one, or which one was what one, or what one was who. Then, when every cent of their money was spent, the fix-it-up chappie packed up and he went. And he laughed as he drove in his car up the beach. They never will learn. No, you can't teach a Sneetch. But McBean was quite wrong. I'm quite happy to say that the Sneetches got really quite smart on that day. The day they decided that Sneetches are Sneetches, and no kind of Sneetch is the best on the beaches. That day, all the Sneetches forgot about stars, and whether they had one or not upon theirs. Hi everybody, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed today's story. We're going to get started on our craft now. And today we're going to make kind of our own stress ball or squishy ball that you can have to play with. You can kind of squish it around, you can juggle these. It's going to be a lot of fun to use these. I've already made a couple examples so I can show off what you can do to make it easier for you, and maybe even safer if you don't want to make too much of a mess. This one can be a little messy because we are using some flour, but there are lots of ways that you can make it so that it's not as messy. Just have a parent or caretaker kind of help you out, and it's going to make it a lot easier. Let's get started. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to get some kind of container. If it's a plastic one, that's going to make it a lot easier, and if it's got a wider mouth up at the top, that's going to make it a lot easier too. I've already put a little bit of flour in here, but I'm going to add a little bit more. So what you want to do is you want to add maybe a cup or two of flour. You can play around with the amounts because, you know, a bag of flour is pretty cheap. You can, you've probably already got some in your cabinets, in your pantry, in your kitchen. You know, you can try it with a lot of different types of things inside as well. You might be able to do it with salt, you might be able to do it with sand, but really you just want to play with the amount. I probably have maybe half a cup in here already, and I'm going to add a little bit more to it. Now I'm using a funnel to kind of add to this. I'm just going to put a bunch in here, and if we have too much in here, that's totally okay. You'll notice I'm already making all kinds of mess. Now you'll notice that there are probably some little problems kind of getting started with this. You know, you'll notice that, you know, the flour is all just kind of stuck on top and it's not really going in all that well. Well, you could sift it in there pretty easily. You can probably even just take a spoon. I'm using a chopstick of all things, or yeah, I'm using a little stick of all things to kind of get this in here. And I'm just kind of pushing that down into our bottle. Well, the big reason you want to do this is because we need to transfer these bottles into balloons a little bit more easily. I'm just going to go ahead and speed this up so that you guys don't have to see me add too much of this into the bottle. Cool, so we've got everything kind of added to this. Again, if you sifted the flour first, it's gonna make it a lot easier to kind of put it in there. You can put the funnel away, you're not gonna need that again. But now we've got our bottle filled with flour. Next, you're gonna need a balloon. These are just easy little balloons that you can get from pretty much any party store. This pack came with 15 of them. You can get lots of different colors, use all different kinds. I'm just using some green ones today, but if you've got a variety of colors, it's more fun to use those. So let's blow this balloon up. I did 2 blows into this one, and that's a pretty good size. What you're gonna do now is that you're actually going to kind of pull it off, and rather than tie it off, you're just going to twist it so that you got a little bit of a twist so that you can still open up the balloon. So what we're going to actually do is we're actually going to take this balloon and we're going to use the top part, use the mouthpiece, and cover the top of our bottle with that. You still want to kind of hold it off, so you might need some help doing that, but I'm an expert. First try, good to go. So we've got our balloon on the very top, and it's gonna unfurl itself so that it is still an opening it can kind of get through. Now is the kind of tough part. If you have a plastic bottle, it makes this a little bit easier, but I'm using a glass one with a large mouth. But if you've got a plastic one with a large mouth, that's gonna make it even easier still. So something like a juice bottle is gonna work really well. Even a soda bottle would work pretty okay with this too. So the next thing to do is to flip it over, and you're gonna start trying to get the flour into your balloon. Now there are a couple ways that you can do this. You can either shake your bottle, or if you have a plastic one, you can kind of squeeze it, and it's gonna make it kind of pump into the balloon balloon a lot easier. So I'm just gonna shake this, and I'm gonna have to do a lot of shaking to get all this flour in there. You want maybe a cup or two into your balloon, and you'll constantly need to check the mouth here, mouth of the balloon, to make sure that nothing's kind of getting stuck in there. So you're just gonna add it to this, and you're gonna shake it in there, and we'll speed it up again so that you guys don't have to see all of this. All right, I think we've gotten a pretty good amount of flour into this. I've got a little bit left in the bottle. I might try to make another one in a little bit. So now it's just gonna be a matter of taking this and actually removing the top, and there might be some residual flour up at the top, but that's okay. You're gonna see a lot of flour with this. So again, this is a messier craft, so you will wanna take some steps to make sure that you can clean up in the area or in an area that's okay to get dirty. All right, now's the tough part. We want to make sure that we deflate the balloon without getting too much of the flour flying out of the top. There will be a little bit of that dust kind of coming off of it, so it's just gonna be a matter of slowly releasing that air. You know, you can even play a little song if you want to with it. That's probably super annoying to you guys, but let's kind of start to ease this air out of this. And you'll want to make sure that you're starting to evenly distribute your flour in the balloon at this point. We'll make sure it's all kind of towards the bottom, because when we start to release all the air, you'll notice that it's going to start to encapsulate around all that flour. So I'm using my other hand just to kind of shape it, and you'll already feel that it's getting a little squishy. I think I added a pretty good amount to this, and you will see that when you get towards the end, a lot of flour is going to come flying out of the mouth of the balloon. Now, there are a couple things that you can do here. You can kind of pinch off one part of it and just let the rest of that flour just kind of fall on your table or your workstation. I'm going to kind of filter out a lot of it, but you'll notice that, yeah, it's starting to have trouble and it's going to kind of start oozing out of this. I'm going to try to get as much out of that end piece, that kind of mouthpiece part, as I can and squish that down into the balloon. Because you can overfill this pretty easily and you can underfill it. Just experiment again, see if you can get a lot of different types. Just kind of find the perfect amount of flour to kind of reuse this. So we have done it. We filled it with all of our flour, and it's a pretty fun thing to go ahead and just kind of squish and play around with. But we want to make it super secure at this point. So there are two things that you can do. You can go ahead and tie off the end if you'd like, and then you can just have and then you've got at least one layer of protection for it. I'm actually going to not actually tie this one off. Some of the other ones I did tie off. You can see on this one that you can actually see the part where it was kind of tied off on the end of the balloon. I'm actually going to go ahead and cut this part of it. I'm going to go ahead and cut this little nozzle part off so that we have a more flush piece to kind of work with. And so now we've gotten down to this. This is a part where you can decide if you want to kind of clean off your balloon. Okay, we're back. Had a little bit of a disaster there with my microphone, but we're back, and I actually did have some time to go ahead and clean off my balloon so I can work from here. So the next thing to do, these are a little dirty, so I'm gonna choose a different one for this. The next thing to do, you'll notice that we still have a little bit of flour kind of popping out. I'm just gonna dunk a little bit of that out so that we can have a cleaner, kind of a cleaner shape for it. So we've done this, we've got our first balloon filled with flour. Let's then take another balloon, and you're going to cut the end off of this one. You need to kind of choose a part of it where, you know, it's not too far up to the top and not too far down. If it's too far down, it's not going to seal as well, but I would say just about in the middle somewhere so that you have a little bit that you can play with. You can actually trim this part later, and I'll show you how to do that. Now that we kind of clip that end off, you can actually kind of get your fingers inside of the balloon and you can kind of stretch that out. This is a part that you'll definitely want a grown-up to kind of help you with. Now you want to take your balloon and cover the other balloon, especially in using the kind of that top part of the balloon to cover this this open part of it. This is a little tough to do, so really stretch your balloon out and kind of do your best to get it all inside of the balloon. So you're just gonna kind of wrap this all around, and it'll be hard because it's a little squishy, but play around with it and really work with it, and eventually you'll have the whole thing wrapped around the other balloon. This adds an extra layer of protection, so that it makes it a lot stronger of a seal, so you're not losing as much flour in it, and it's not going to break if you dropped it somehow. Make sure that you are using party balloons and not water balloons. Water balloons are going to explode immediately if you try to work with one of those. So now that we've kind of stretched this out, I'm constantly kind of pulling along this top balloon, that top layer that we added to it, and I'm just going to kind of play around and make a good shape for it. That's a pretty good one to go off with. So now that we've done that, I'm actually going to stretch this part out. I'm going to stretch and kind of twist it a little bit, and now we're going to cut this extra bit off. And make sure that you don't cut the other balloon. Now that we've done that, we've made a pretty good seal, and it's actually going to wrap all the way around, and you can't really notice that it's another balloon that's been wrapped around it, especially if you're using the same color. I'm actually going to make sure that I really tighten this up. I may have cut a touch too much off of that, but you can always stretch it out a little bit more to better the seal. So keep pulling it around and keep making sure that you are giving it enough of a surface that it covers up that bottom hole, and it's also, you know, covering up the top and it isn't exploding. If you want to make it extra secure, you could even take a little bit of some super glue, and it will adhere really well with the rubber of the balloon. I'm actually going to go crazy, and I'm going to add one more balloon around this as well to make it absolutely secure to use. If you add too much, because you'll see that it's already starting to explode. So I'm going to go ahead and get another balloon, and I'm going to try to cover that part as well. It was probably just a little too tight. I really hope this doesn't explode on me. So I'm going to have to probably do this whole thing over if that happens. So really take this and cover it as much as you can, and then trim that top if you can towards the end. The more balloons that you add to it, the harder it's going to, you know, the weirder it's going to be and the tougher it is going to be to squeeze. Play around with it. You can get a bunch of balloons and try this out. Flour is really easy to come by. Balloons are really easy to come by. And you know, you can make it a little bit firmer. You can make it tougher if you add more if you add more flour to it, and you can make it a little bit easier to use. Now's the part when you can kind of trim the edge. See, it's okay to make mistakes like I have here today, because you can keep practicing and you can make a lot better ones. Then you can kind of trim this edge and kind of get that a cleaner line within this. Something else that you can do is you can take another color and then kind of cut that out and cut a couple different holes in it so you can kind of give it an extra design to it. I'll put a video link in the description so you can see a little bit more detail how you can do that. So we're going to cut this edge off, and you can even just kind of rip a little piece of it, and I'm just going to go ahead and do that. I think this has come out pretty good. Now this one is a little wonky, a little funky, but all of yours are going to look a little wonky and funky when you get started. But with some practice, you can have a bunch of different kinds. So now we've got a big one that we kind of work with here. This was my first one that I think was pretty well. I didn't add as much flour into this one, so it's a little squishier. This is another one that we made. This one's pretty firm. It's got a lot of flour in it, but the balloon held pretty well for that. And this is a kind of funky one that I made. It ended up kind of looking like a little egg or maybe a pear or something. So from here, you know, you can just squish with it. You can play around with it. They flatten out really well. You can throw these against the wall and they shouldn't explode. They should actually hold their shape and actually hold that shape pretty well too. You can kind of smash them around. You can even juggle with these. Let me show you that. So yeah, there are lots of things that you can do with these. It's really fun to play around with, really fun to just squish them. Get some, maybe if you're stressed out about something, you can squish around with them. Maybe it's just something tactile that you want to play with. Maybe you're fidgety in the car. These are a lot of fun to play with. You can keep adding balloons to it to kind of hold its shape, and they're really easy to make in case they do break outside or something. I would recommend that you do play with these mostly outside, just because there is a chance that they may break. Maybe you have an older balloon or it's starting to get a little weaker, but you can always make new ones, and flour is easy to clean up. Thanks so much for watching today's video. We hope to see you next week for even more.